The Reverend and the Rabbi, Faith and Eggs. Reverend Bill Crawford, Senior Pastor of Larchmont Avenue Church, and Rabbi Jeff Serkman, Senior Rabbi of Larchmont Temple, are friends and colleagues in our community who get together regularly for breakfast and always lively discussion. Join the Reverend Bill and Rabbi Jeff at their latest meal at the Nautilus Diner. Enjoy a breakfast of faith and eggs with the Reverend and the Rabbi.
Rabbi Jeff.
God
bless you, man. God bless you. Well, this is wonderful. Here we are with dozens of our best friends for the Faith and Eggs, Reverend and the Rabbi at the Diner.
This is the finale.
This is the finale.
It.
This is the finale. This is after 17 years.
Amazingly.
Amazingly.
What TV shows run for 17 years?
Cheers, Gunsmoke. Maybe. Gunsmoke.
Gunsmoke. Oh, I love Gunsmoke.
Why are we going that way? Gunsmoke. Yeah.
No, but it was good. Will Arness, right?
And how'd that theme song go? Gunsmoke? Dun, dun, dun. How was it? The dramatic theme song. Okay. Yeah, Gunsmoke. Yeah. Okay, moving on, which is what we always do here at the Diner, Faith and Eggs, in downtown Larchmont. It's on the cusp, Larchmont and Mamaroneck. We've never figured out that geography, but it's a momentous day. It's August 27th, 2018. Do you know where your president is?
Tell us why. Yes. Tell us why. Tell us why it's a momentous day, Reverend.
Well, here it is, brothers and sisters, ladies and gentlemen, and I can't help but feel a little liturgical with my brother Rabbi. As in, we gather people for worship and services in so many ways, and we are here with this wonderful constellation, more than a minion, I'd say.
We have more than a minion. We do.
More than a minion.
You are so Jewish.
There you go. Well, Jesus was Jewish, and so stay tuned, there's more to say. Okay, but momentous as it is here, August 27th, this is the last. The finale of the Reverend and the Rabbi, Faith and Eggs at the Diner. After these 17 years. And by the way,
good morning.
Abel, good morning. Give it up for Abel. Okay. Yeah. Good. And so this is the moment, as you have been doing already, we pause. I'm going to get to that question.
By the way, we should just note that Abel is his real name.
I know.
Look, we don't get to name the waiters based upon our biblical stories, our favorites, right? So we should just make it clear.
No. Cain is in the kitchen, but we have Abel right here.
Cain's cooking.
But I digress, and we always do at Faith and Eggs. Okay, we may get to that question in a little bit. Oh no, where are you going?
Sorry.
You're the waiter.
I'm so hungry.
You're the waiter. Wait. So the Rabbi would like to have an omelet with onions slightly burned, and dozens of cucumbers and 13 olives.
No,
that's kind of what happens.
I'm going corned beef hash burnt. 2 eggs over easy.
Wow.
You can't go wrong with that. You can't go. Great corned beef hash.
And many of you are thinking now.
No, maybe little olives. Little olives on the side.
Really? Olives are kind of awesome, especially with corned beef hash.
And you know what? I'll go one piece of right toast.
There you go. And right now, our studio audience, and those of you at home watching this too, may want to eat what the Rabbi eats and have that corned beef hash. Or, as I place my order, I'd love to have. As we started the program,
Are you going fried tomato? You're not going tomatoes.
No. I'm thinking scrambled eggs. I shifted over the years to poached eggs. We had a viewers' revolt. They said, "You went to poached eggs, Reverend. What's up with that?" So I'm going back. Scrambled eggs, home fries, rye toast butter. Okay.
Thank you.
And coffee. And can we have some water too?
Right now.
Thanks, Abel.
Thank you, Abel. Everybody. We're off to a great start. So this is historic because after these 17 years, this is our last show. As I, this week, on the 31st of August, will conclude in the fullness thereof.
Yesterday was the last.
Yesterday was the last sermon as senior pastor at the Larchmont Avenue Church.
Wow.
So after 19 years, I am retiring and turning the page, as it were. It's a pause. It's not retirement as in close it up, curtain down, rocking chair. I'm going to be headed to the Episcopal Seminary in the city, General Theological Seminary, where my beloved wife, and many of you know her, Reverend Dr. Julie Faith Parker, who's in the house. Seated next to my beautiful and brilliant daughter, Marisol Maury Crawford. And then across from them is Reverend Elizabeth Smith Bartlett, who is the associate pastor. And in our prayers, her leadership and guidance is wonderful and continues in this transition at the Larchmont Avenue
Thank
Church. And I would, I have great fondness for the staff at the Larchmont Temple. If they're not here, I'm glad to kind of do the roster call because Cantor Tracy, Rabbi Bethy.
Rabbi Bethy and Cantor Tracy are not here. They're actually working. They're there, but no. But Jane Sable Freeman is here.
There we go.
Representing, and then there's all these other leaders, past presidents. There are literally in the house. There are four past presidents of Larchmont Temple, right there.
Oh my gosh.
1, 2, 3, 4 past presidents of Larchmont Temple.
Oh my gosh! And so here we go. And I'm glad to
Adams. No.
There we go. And so from the Larchmont Avenue Church, two folks who have been clerks of our session. Penny Olberg is here, right over yonder, next to Carol, and Harmon McAllister, seated next to his beloved wife, Beverly. There we go. This is really a polite and affirming audience.
So yesterday's message. Give us the one-liner.
Well,
give us if you could encapsulate, which I know is quite impossible for you, but if you could encapsulate.
If I could encapsulate. Well, somewhere here, and they might want to chime in or whatever, say amen. But I basically took a page, literally, from the Christian Testament, the New Testament, as the Apostle Paul. And that name rings a bell for many of you.
It does.
And for this rabbi, too. Rabbi Jeff, along with your studies at Boston University as an undergrad, you
have a minor in New Testament.
Minored in New Testament. So we could talk about the Apostle Paul, not to be confused with Paul Sharkesy, who's in the house, ladies and gentlemen. Okay? But the Apostle Paul, coincidentally, in his ministry after a conversion, traveled how many times? 3 around the Mediterranean Sea as the church was beginning.
Yes.
And in all of those travels, that encompassed, here we go, 19 years. 19 years Bill Crawford, 19 years the Apostle Paul. He was traversing the Mediterranean. I was going across the Hudson River and Long Island Sound. He wound up, for different reasons, getting so much of what he wrote and preached and taught published and circulated. That did not happen with me. Okay. But to your point in the question, which I haven't forgotten, by the way, I mean, I wrote and took literally a page from the Apostle Paul as I wrote to the church. Thanking God.
So you did a sort of a letter to, you did a Galatians thing.
Kind of Galatians.
Yeah.
Good for you. Do you want to expound on Galatians?
I would like to a little bit. No, go ahead.
Because
I want to know what you said.
Well, I talked about the witness of God's love at work in the life of the church and these brothers and sisters in this congregation, and cited numerous examples, way past and present, of that, and continuing with great thanks, as Paul says, and as I was glad to say resoundingly, thanks, and ever thanks do I give to God for all of you.
That's beautiful.
And so that was it. And I also, somebody wondered if we might sing it, but as part of it, the Psalms were kind of lifted up, and we could do a little discourse on the Psalms, which in so many ways, all 150 of them, are songs and supplications.
Yes, they are, which delights Reverend Bill.
Delights indeed.
Anytime he can sing.
Anytime I can sing. And so shamelessly, and there's some here who may kind of blush and blanch, but I had the congregation sing. I had them sing this song, okay? And I'm bold and daring to teach it to you. Do you want to hear it? Yeah. That's good. That's a good answer. Okay.
I'll be back in 20 minutes.
No. Okay. You're going to want to do this.
No, I can't wait. I can't wait.
So I had the whole church in the kind of stepping stone into the sermon, echoes of the Psalms going into what I was about to preach. Had the kids up front, and it went like this: God made the earth. Big earth, okay.
I know this song.
God made the sky, give it up. God made the fish, and people could make a fish face, okay? And the birds that fly, okay? Animals, and pretend like you're holding an animal and petting it, okay? Flowers, take a big whiff of a fragrant flower. Animals, flowers, trees so tall, okay? And we kind of stretched and reached. God made everything. We did a 360, great and small. God made all that I can see. God made you, and God made me. Okay? And having said that, it went like this. See if you can sing it too. Okay, you ready? Please say yes, Paul. Okay. God made the earth, and God made the sky. God made the fish and the birds that fly. Animals, flowers, trees so tall. God made everything great and small. God made all that I can see. God made you and God made me. Amen, amen. And so we sang the song, and then moved into the sermon, and there was just a wonderful reflection.
Well, it sounds like, and it really, since our days of sitting over there, not on camera.
Yeah.
Reverend Bill, you came in was it 2000?
1999.
Amazingly.
Yeah.
But by 2000, we were having breakfast regularly, and we would sit. And sooner or later, Mike Charles, right there, said, "You really should put this on TV." Yeah. And we said, "What do you mean? We're just having breakfast." And he said, "No, that's exactly it. You should have breakfast on TV." And we thought, that's a great idea.
Yeah.
And we do the same amount of rehearsal that we did for our breakfast as we do for the show. We walk in.
But the thing is the 9/11 moment.
Well, no. So what led to it crystallizing was on 9/11, I was home. It was this time of year. I was home writing my last of my holiday sermons. I just talked to Harry first. I have 2 sermons that I think are just about done. I have one, the toughest one, about the nature of what the heck's going on in our world and our country, to try to figure it out and say something meaningfully. And I was home writing that sermon, and I called Reverend Bill. And I said, "Did you just see what happened? What's going on?" And we met at the diner, and we put together a community-wide service of memory or commemoration and hope. And we were at Larchmont Temple. We didn't know how many people we'd get. It was the new sanctuary of the temple. We had done the construction literally that year, and we had been meeting in the garden room, but we were in our new sanctuary, and we had people, and the sanctuary opened up to High Holy Days numbers, which is around 850, I don't know, and we were in the streets. We had lots of people, and Reverend Bill and I put together the service, and after that, we just kept talking, except it was on camera.
Yeah, and there were a couple. Here came Mike with the idea yet again to go on camera at LMC-TV, but there were some reporters. There was even dare I say humbly, a New York Times article, as people were eager to hear, certainly in the journalistic circles, some word as to what was being said and done,
right.
With clergy and whatever.
Right.
And so we were asked, and we responded.
Why do you think there was such a big group? There was such a lot of excitement about faith and eggs in that time. And I think that the answer is almost obvious. But what do you think? Why was it so, like, it was sort of a centerpiece? People were talking about it. It was actually like 12 people were talking about it. But first, that was a lot of. But it was the whole New York Times thing, right? There was a lot of excitement. There's a lot of, I think, in part because of the nature of what was going on in the country, that people were putting up walls, that there was a lot of fear, even with the backlash of 9/11, and the idea that 2 clergy people of different faith communities could get together and not only mostly see eye to eye, but share from their heart, that was a big deal.
Yeah. And that really was, here came our new relationship, and gathering at the diner, and then ensuing events, and here we are with the camera and all that business. But then too, we were pretty intentional. I mean, what you see really is what you get with Rabbi Jeff and Bill in our regular day in, day out stuff. We will talk like this. We will be on the phone. And yes, we do on occasion talk about sports. But along the way, here's some critical issues and things we were reading. And so one thing led to another. And some of you have been a part of this. Here's been some Bible study. Here's been some book study group activity. One of the books that's on our... And by the way, I mean, maybe LMC-TV with its crack research staff and, other resources could put together a bibliography. We've always kind of named and noted some books. But one seminal piece at the beginning was, and some of you are part of this, Constantine's Sword by James Carroll. James Carroll's a Boston-based guy.
He's a Boston-based guy, yeah.
A novelist. He also gave the eulogy at William Sloane Coffin's funeral.
Wow.
Yeah, really a beloved guy. And he, son of an Air Force, the Secretary of the Air Force, growing up in the 60s in Germany, really studied and looked at elements of pogrom and history and the like. And so Constantine's Sword...
Right, churches, history, treatment of the Jews, relationship over 2,000 years, 2 millennia.
Yeah.
And we read it as a Larchmont Avenue Church, Larchmont Temple of Faith communities, and we gathered together. So from
600 pages, some of you.
Yeah,
Paul, you read?
like 623, by the way. Anyway, so but our reading it was wonderful because it showed how one little conversation could really spin out and include lots of folks. So we had 40 people, maybe more, gathering every month and debriefing and talking about it. And I remember the first time we met at Larchmont Temple, we went around and we said, okay, the cross, first association. What do you first? And a couple of folks from Larchmont Avenue Church said God's grace, salvation, and then some Jew, oppression, and so it's a very different take. And we realized we had some stuff to talk about.
Truly. And that, and some of you are aware of this. I can't help but making this sign, Constantine's Sword. Now, mind you, those history buffs will know the date of the battle at the Midlothian Bridge when Constantine was a Roman army officer, and so he was victorious. It was 312. He had a dream. He had an apparition. He saw a sign in the sky, and it was a cross. And his response, I wasn't there. Were you there?
I was not there, but I'm trusting you.
But the line was, Abel, thank you so much. Constantine didn't say that, but I'm saying it to you, brother. Okay, thank you so much.
Thanks, Abel.
He saw that, an apparition, a dream, or whatever, that sign in the sky, and he said, by this sign I will conquer. The cross.
Yeah.
The cross that came to be, obviously significant for Christians. And by the way, back in the day, it was that element and sign literally of what, the Romans did for and with execution of Jesus. So going forward, here's Constantine claiming that in the midst of his conversion, to Christianity. Now, was that faith-based or was that political? Talk amongst yourselves, okay? And that was the talking amongst ourselves that we really, because here was it politically expedient? And, the history went on. And the consequences of that are, what they are, significant indeed. So we had the church being formed around that predicate, or at least that moment when the empire became Christian and Constantine. So James Carroll took that to heart as he grew up in the valleys of Germany, and here's the Rhine, and here's the pogroms, and here's all sorts of stuff.
So
and this rabbi and this reverend, really, on the heels of 9/11. And it was about that time that our erstwhile producer, Mike Charles, give it up for Mike, by the way, again. Okay. But Mike, in his erudite, and he, I think, at that time was president of the board of LMC-TV. How many times in this program can I say LMC-TV? Okay, I'm going to try. Okay, but Mike took this kind of message and package with the videotapes to the National Association of Public Access TV and said, here's an entry for religious programming. And in 2002, Mike Charles, this show won the award for Best Religious Program on Public Access TV in these United States of America. Yeah.
You can imagine.
Just say it.
You can imagine the competition was not that heavy.
but why not? But how many of those other programs? I mean, give me Jimmy Swaggart and all that business. We're talking about Constantine Sword, I tell you.
Yeah.
You know, we kind of brought it. And
so because we do this every show, and we don't. Have I said this before? We don't really prepare. So you know what strikes me about just what's happening in this moment in time is that sometimes death informs the highest aspirations in life. Mm-hmm. And so I just want to call out, may his memory be for blessing, John McCain. Yes. To be able to say, you know, you struggle with loss, you know, how telling is it that at his funeral, which will happen, I think, the end of the week, that the two people who were his opponents in political, campaigns will be speaking at his funeral. True.
And that would be George Bush and Barack Obama,
right? Yeah. So just to be able to say, a man who put principle, you know, above all else. And I was listening, I got sucked into watching that For Whom the Bell Tolls, which is this beautiful thing, his sort of overview of his political career from CNN. Yeah. And it had him talking about the New Hampshire primary. And then after he won New Hampshire, which he said is in 2000, his highest political moment, he goes down to South Carolina and he compromises his values and doesn't give an honest answer. Because he said in New Hampshire, whatever else you hear from me, you'll sometimes hear things you like, you'll sometimes hear things you don't like, but you'll always hear the truth. And then he goes to South Carolina and they ask him about the Confederate flag hanging above the State House. And he says it's a symbol of heritage. And he reads from a piece of paper, right? And about, I don't know, a week and a half later, he gives a public apology. And he said, and it's a room full of people, and he says, and he's so contrite, and he says, you know, I just want you to know I did not live up to my ideals. And I did not tell the truth. He said, this is not what I think. And I did this because I thought it would help me win an election, and I didn't win the election, and I realized you should never do things to win an election. You should stand up for your principles. Don't we miss that?
We miss that.
Don't we miss that?
that? Indeed.
I mean, you know, don't we long for that?
Yeah.
You know, that's...
And that's it. I just want to make sure I'm not interrupting because
No, I'm just throwing it out there.
Mind you, it is probably the course in our MO that we, in exuberance, might kind of encroach upon each other's comments and whatever. But to note that as Rabbi Jeff upcoming, I understand that there will be a funeral service at the U.S. Naval Academy on Monday, and then a service at the National Cathedral the day before. So that's a Monday thing. And it is true that those two previous presidents, George Bush and Barack Obama, will be speaking. And conspicuous by absence, or whatever else we might say about it, the current president will not be there. And here's where, at various times at this table in our discourse, we haven't jumped at political matters, but we haven't avoided them, and there has been some tenor and tone to the times. And I must say, what's kind of bald and dare I say blatant about the aforementioned current president is kind of the on the campaign trail, the comments about Mr. McCain could not be a hero because he did not die, or whatever those lines are.
He got captured.
He got captured. And so, oh my gosh. Good that even as we see and hear the comments from the White House, which don't talk per se about Mr. McCain, but apparently from the president, the first words this morning were support for the family, without noting McCain himself, which is kind of how political is that, given the fact that he said that previously.
I would say when they go low, we go high. So we're gonna maintain the integrity of that man's memory, and we celebrate. You know, the other thing I would throw out is. On the heels of it, Neil Simon passed away at 91. And I'll sign up. 91. God bless him.
God bless him. But in 1967, 4 plays on Broadway at the same time in 1967. Neil Simon, I mean, awesome.
Yeah. In addition to his life at the church, he's actually, he reviews theater for the Times.
I am very glad to review the theater of Mari Crawford. Remember that name? She's in
right.
the
So
house.
what? So what? No, hold on 1 second. Wait. So wait. What was on Broadway at the same time? It must have been.
Well, I know.
Was it Barefoot in the Park?
Well, I think so. But then also The Odd Couple was on. Okay.
All right.
Now,
All right,
for
The Odd
extra
Couple.
credit, studio audience, brilliant as we are. The Odd Couple. Are you thinking us?
No.
Okay.
Malcolm is saying, when are you going to eat?
Oh, what are we going to eat?
saying
That
we-
never happens, actually. That's very, very sensitive. But there were 2 other plays.
Odd Couple, Barefoot in the Park. Lost in Yonkers was after, I think. No, it was after. He only wrote that after he won the Pulitzer for that. Maybe same time next
Maybe
year.
same time.
Yeah, it could be same time next year.
Yeah. And he started out, did you know this? Working with Sid Caesar. He was way back in the
Your
day.
show of shows?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, they were kind of rocking and rolling and writing comedy, which is hard. I mean, it's hard today, but, Second City and Saturday Night Live has nothing on those guys back then. But that's how he cut his teeth. Brilliant guy.
Hey, would you want to break bread with me?
Well, I do, and I would always, my brother. And so, as our ritual and blessing, I could recite these words, but I'm glad to hear them from the Rabbi.
Yeah.
Baruch atah
Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hamotzi lechem min haaretz. Amen.
And with thanks be to God for the bread of life, and for that bread as we recognize the name companionship. Pan in the midst of it is bread. For the fellowship, relationship, for that which we share. Thanks be to God. Amen. Amen. Thanks be to God. Amen. May the whole church and synagogue and shul and whomever say amen.
There you go.
Amen. Amen. So,
and Reverend Bill is about to comment on the following. He's about to say, the rye bread here is the best rye bread anywhere.
Isn't it good rye bread? How many are having rye bread here? Okay. Do you like that rye bread?
No. I haven't tasted it.
You haven't tasted it yet?
It's
You
Levy's.
asked me first. I don't know.
It's Levy's rye. It's Levy's.
Is it really Levy's? It's
I'm
wonderful.
making it up,
It's
but it should be Levy's rye.
It should be. It should be. So, what's next? We have this wonderful
Well, first I
group
just
here.
want to say, the Phillies are looking really good.
The Phillies are looking really good. Okay, this has been a, dare I say, a concern. I won't necessarily jump to saying it's a cross to bear, but in this community, where there's Mets fans, where there's Yankees fans, Rabbi Jeff and I have something in common. We stand alone and separate from Mets and Yankees fans. Some of them are our best friends, okay, with great affection, to be sure. But one of us is a Red Sox fan, one of us is a Phillies fan, and I think you know who. I think you know who's. Oh my gosh, it's a Red Sox tie. Okay. And by the way, back in the day, I want to say this and go on record for saying this, okay? We all know that Faith and Eggs, Reverend Rabbi at the Diner, started 17 years ago. When we started, how many World Series championships were attained by the Red Sox? 0. In the time since then, in the 17 years of this program, how many Red Sox World Series? Okay? It's all because of us. It's all because of us. And then we've had 2 World Series visits by the Philadelphia Phillies.
Yeah.
One victorious, and the other not so.
Against the Yankees.
That's right, losing in 6 games. Thanks very much. Let's move on. Okay. But, that's kind of another testimony to what happens at this table.
Yeah.
We have a dynamic sports department. You're looking at them right now. And we've had great fun with that. Oh
We
my
are
God.
not in any way egocentric,
The-
but we do believe most everything that happens in America and indeed around the globe somehow makes its way through our table and Larchmont. You know, we really
Just say. And by the way, I know over that course of 17 years, there were a few Super Bowl victories from that team in New England. What's that name?
The Patriots.
The Patriots. But how about this most recent Super Bowl, everybody? Yeah. Who won that one? Dorothy, can you tell us? The Philadelphia Eagles, everyone. Okay? And what a fine game. What a fine game. I must say, before God and these witnesses and my brother Rabbi Jeff, the Patriots are a fine team. They could have perhaps the best quarterback in NFL history, Tom Brady.
Yeah, could be.
But the Eagles showed up, and it was just a glorious moment to see the Eagles.
It was glorious for some people.
There we go.
But just so to get back to your point, which is there are often I'll not call them delusions. I'll say there are visions of grandeur from Reverend Bill. Oftentimes he thinks about how we probably will be picked up by ABC or some national network, but
just a matter of time.
Just a matter of time. Time may have run out on that. My mic is what? It fell down.
Oh, there we go.
So I'm not being picked up. Look at that. So nothing is happening.
So you don't have to repeat the delusions of grandeur line.
No, I'm not going to do that. But suffice it to say, what happens in Larchmont matters to us more than I don't want to say everything, but we are very local folks, and we care deeply about this community. We both feel that our own congregational communities are very special. Everybody likes to say, "Oh, my temple is so great." It's not like every other temple. We actually believe that at Larchmont Temple.
We do too.
And the church community believes it as well. I could not take credit for that. I will give credit to that for over at Larchmont Avenue Church, to the legacy that this man continues from Reverend Dick Martin before him, because it's a legacy of bridge building and outreaching love. And that's really what it's about. Yeah. That's how you build a church community. That's how you build a synagogue community. That's how you build any community. It's grounded and founded on love and care. And so, you can thank, but thank you.
Well, and two, I think we live in a wonderful, awesome community in which across the landscape, and we have houses of worship, and many of them are represented here beyond the two that are represented at this table. The Berry Street AME Church, the First Baptist Church. Some of these brothers and sisters are in the house. The Methodist Church down the road on the Boston Post Road. St. Thomas Episcopal, and props to Reverend Carol and Reverend Tammy, who have been wonderfully active. Reverend Marvin Hank at the Lutheran Church, who really is the senior-most of all of us as clergy in this community. And then our Roman Catholic brothers and sisters at St. John and Paul, as well as St. Augustine. And then in the Manor, St. John's Episcopal Church. There's a constellation, not to mention the Christian Science and others who are part of and affiliated with the Interfaith Council, and President Jan's signing is here to say that there's an awesome interfaith community that's rather dynamic. It has been a joy and pleasure, an honor really, to connect with so many across this landscape in great ways. Yeah. And we really stand on the shoulders of those who have gone before us. You mentioned Reverend Martin and Rabbi Polner, really have been really preeminent in that. I think, if I may say something about this rabbi and this reverend, we really have a personal, professional, vocational passion in our ministry for doing that bridge building and reaching with community. It's kind of a no-brainer, you know. And so, you know, I really cherish and treasure that in terms of the opportunity and the touching. To be in a community for 19 years is to be blessed and afforded with a chance to really connect in some readily accessible, you know, ways because of relationships over time.
Yep.
When we mentioned that 9/11 event at the temple, you know, and the phone call immediately, that was a testimony to a relationship. And then just as quickly, boom, we went, you know, to the mats and to the streets, and all of you and so many others came. I mean, so I really am so very grateful for that in the midst of our work and our calling. I've been at the elbow of this dear brother as he is an adjunct professor, I think that's the title, at the Hebrew Union College, teaching young rabbinical students. We have team taught together at Union Seminary, my alma mater in New York City. And it's really very touching to see and hear and witness, much like here's Reverend Elizabeth here with us, and also younger, newer colleagues. I think of Rabbi Bethy and Reverend Alyssa at the St. John's Episcopal Church, who, for different reasons, and we are very touched, kind of welcome what it is we might have to say and share.
Because in the Yiddish would be, we're alter kakas, you know, where there's a translation that's rough, we're just old folks, you know, we're the older generation, and yet we don't feel like the older generation. So maybe we can transition to the moment, because I think what you've said, holding up the relationship that we have founded in true care and love for the community, since we have the community gathered, this is sort of an ideal for us. That we wouldn't just have Faith and Eggs at one table, but we'd have like Faith and Eggs at a whole bunch of tables.
How about that? It's a movement.
It's a movement.
Faith and Eggs forever, say amen somebody. There we go, there we go.
So my question, or our question really, is to be able to open it up a little bit, to be able to ask you, what is it that you want to either share with Reverend Bill as he is transitioning to a definition or a redefinition of retirement, in quotes, and a whole new phase of his life, but really that you'd like to share. It could be a question about our dialogue. It could be a question about building bridges. It could be a question about major things going on in our own community that you want to throw on the table. Or it could be just an affirmation.
Or Torah or gospel.
Or Torah or gospel.
There we go. There we go.
And there's a mic. Look at that. No, right there. Reverend, look at that.
Oh, there's a mic. There's a mic under the table.
Can you reach that?
Here we go. Here we go. And the other thing I want to say is a note on transition, because I mentioned Julie and I, as we make our way to the General Theological Seminary in Chelsea, in downtown Manhattan. Julie is professor of biblical studies. She started there in July 1. I will be in a staff capacity at the Desmond Tutu Center, which is located at the seminary. So matters of peace and justice and some geopolitical matters will be on the agenda as far as that goes.
That's what he calls retirement.
There, yeah. But let's move on. That question was a really good one. And yes, we have a mic that you can hold. And here's Mike Charles. Thank you, Mike. Thank you, Mike, for the mic. Here we go.
Up to 60 seconds. Try to take, if you can do less, great. To be able to frame a question, a statement, a concern. Yeah, Malcolm.
Well, first of all, question, am I entitled to 2 questions?
Yeah.
30 seconds. All right. Realize, not to put you on the spot, Bill, but among, say, your top 5 memories of Larchmont, can you tell us about one special memory that you're going to take away with you?
Wow. Golly. So I'll try to be even quick and splice a few in there. I really, one of them immediately we mentioned, it's kind of in the same ballpark of the service at the temple. It was September 12th, 2001, at less than 24 hours, or about a little more, after 9/11, and the gathering there. Rabbi Jeff noted the capacity, which is 800-ish at the temple. It was clearly around 1,500. Yeah. It was really right out, the steps onto Larchmont Avenue. The other, along those lines and the heels of it, a number of things happened in some, rather intense, very fast-moving ways. Valerie O'Keefe is not here, but she was really helpful in some steps as an organization. Came together in support of the 9 families who lost loved ones, and that left 13 young people without parents due to that fateful day in tragedy. And so we organized avenues of support. The Larchmont Avenue Church became a Red Cross center. We were giving blood, and it was like for 3 days straight. I was, and I talked about this yesterday at the church, lying on the floor in a cot with an intravenous in my arm and a thermometer in my mouth, listening to people talk about the church, and I couldn't say a word in response. You know? But
it was a beautiful moment.
And then too, people like Bob Meglio and Rich Side and Noel Dennis were part of the effort that we organized Friends Indeed, F-I-N-D, and many of you were part of it. We took to the streets. And so there was a community-wide march and gathering, for just that. It was reminiscent. The streets were filled. We had Boston Post roadblock. We had a rally at the high school. We just were all over the place with it. Those are quite vivid. And it was reminiscent, as some of you reaching back. I mentioned Valerie O'Keefe. Reminiscent of a march that took place that was in response to anti-Semitism and graffiti that was heinous. Right here in this place. Those are a couple. There's many more. I'm looking around the room and I'm seeing people like Keith Yeiser and Iris Freed, and there have been more than just a few moments that have been shared in some rather particular ways where we've gone to the mats in action. And then
those are good too.
Those are good too. There are 80 more, but and then Gerandi Martinez and Janet Rolone. Even as we speak, I mean, there are steps and issues insofar as advocacy around matters of immigration and service in this community that these 2 young women, grown up from the ranks, now co-directors at the Community Resource Center, which was sparked by the Hispanic Resource Center, which came to life by way of the Summit Initiative. Those are, yes, moments, and really kind of chronicle in so many ways a witness. I'll stop for now.
For you, Jeff.
Yes.
Realizing that Bill is irreplaceable.
Yeah.
Tell us now, will there be a Faith and Eggs 2.0?
No. Some, when remember that last episode of MASH that everybody watched and the planes, the helicopters flew off and it was like that, and I'm not singing the theme music, but you could hear the theme music, and that was the last show. It's okay to have a last show. It's okay to say that the relationship I share with Reverend Bill is really not comparable to anybody else in the community. I love him dearly, and as I've said many times on camera, I see, I feel closer to him than I do to many a traditionally minded, I don't want to, typecast, maybe Orthodox or ultra-Orthodox, rabbinic leader, because Reverend Bill and I share values and share a sense of what it means to be a spiritual leader and what it means to serve. So there's not going to be a 2.0. But we're going to continue doing what we do in this place, in this community, because that's what we're about. With Tracy and Bethy and Elizabeth and, and all of the people in our church communities, but also in the greater church communities. When on CNN, when I saw Cornel West on CNN a couple of nights ago, or a few nights ago, lambasting the current administration, I immediately called my friend Bishop Wayne Powell, and I said, "Did you see that?" He said, "No, I'm driving. What did I miss?" Because he's a news junkie, and so there's a natural connection to all the folks around. But this connection is once in a lifetime. Yeah.
Who's next?
As this forum ends, and we as a community and a world face a very divisive environment in general. Could I ask each one of you to share with us your thoughts on how we handle relationships. Sometimes we have very good friends who have some very different views on this, and it's difficult to maintain those friendships and talk to them. So what advice moving forward with our lives can each one of you give to us?
Goodness.
Well, Reverend Bill?
I think, and I'm looking around to see who among this wonderful group might be a clinician in terms of psychological services and counseling. Mark Levy comes to mind, but another treasure in the midst of this community, and we actually had dinner, the three of us together, just recently. Help me with your name again, because Daryl. And so Dara, a member of the temple, and so I'm Reverend Bill Crawford. It's great to meet you, Dara. There we go. I really think there's, and this is why it gives me pause, and pause is an apt word, because I think in some cases we're aware of, some of the distances and differences and polarities, I mean, I have friends and members of my family who didn't vote as I did, and so we've just kind of, and here's the word pause, held off. We kind of recognizing and held off. But to be in the same place, is a start and a help, without walking out or storming out or throwing things. But at the same time, the next thing beyond the pause would be, to listen and to find, with a deep breath, some ways to talk and share concerns. I say that again with some consternation and concern, because in many ways we find ourselves in a culture where civility in discourse seems to be absent. One of the models, and with a source of appreciation for Shields and Brooks, who many of you watch the Friday Night News Hour. I do, kind of religiously. I'm rather struck by what it means for people of difference or with differences to talk and connect. I think we need to do that and be that and find ways for that.
This is exactly the question that I told you. I wrote 2 holiday sermons. Do you feel like I'm obsessed with this whole thing? So I have one other that I'm going to write, which is going to be Yom Kippur Day. And right now, I've written literally, and I write them out. I don't know, I can't write like this. I have to write like this. So I literally write.
Well, you're an artist. I mean, here's a little tidbit. How many of you knew that before going off to rabbinical school, Rabbi Jeff was an artist and went to study art and design?
Clearly you knew.
I knew.
So this is my PR agent. And it's the sermon that I wrote one line. And the title is How to Fight. That's the thing. So I read this little Zen book by Thich Nhat Hanh. I forget his name. He's that great Tibetan Buddhist monk, right? Who after my wife passed away, one of my favorite kids of all time, Abby Sher, she's like 44, but she was my kid when I was a young rabbi, sent me a book called How to Sit. And it was really, how do you get that equanimity and peace of mind after a great deep loss? And so this book, How to Fight, is basically a Buddhist approach to how do you interact with people who aren't the same as you? And how do you exist in this world? And it's a great book. And so I'm going to combine that with, I think, and here's my answer, Dara. There's a rabbi in Texas, small town in Texas, I'm blanking the name, and he was in my first years as a teacher, he was a student. His name is Neil Katz. So it's a part-time congregation. He's running for political office. He is a very blue rabbi in a very red state. And what does he do? He has a platform. He goes to like gun shows. Guns, as he says, I'm afraid of guns, right? And as I would say the same thing. He goes to, all kinds of rallies that he doesn't feel like he has a place there, and he stands in what he calls the holy middle. I love the phrase, and I've got to talk to him this week. The holy middle is the place where I think John McCain stood a lot of times. It's daring enough and having the conviction enough to care enough about what somebody else says, always maintaining respect, to disagree respectfully, to talk and to listen, and to realize you may not have all the answer. It's okay if somebody thinks differently than you. It's okay if somebody says something that you don't agree with. But we all share the world, and we've got to figure out a way to get along. So where do we meet? We meet in the holy middle, where people remember that everybody's created in God's image, that as different as you are on your perspective, politically, there's something that connects us, something that we have in common. So it's a hard answer, and it's not a whole answer, but check with me in around 2.5 weeks.
I think, Jeremy, there's I guess nuance and complication, emerged for me in this, and not just emerged, they kind of like hit me in the face when it comes to yes discourse and yes listening and this holy middle. And I can't wait for the Yom Kippur service, because I'm eager to hear. But I think the complicating factor is the element of truth. We find ourselves in a time where truth is decried, and we even hear some of the one comment from somebody who's been in the news who said the truth isn't even the truth, and so what of the fabrication and the distortion of that? I mean, I'm really quite concerned. So how is it and when is it that we can come to the holy middle or whatever and talk about truth and facts? Because in the political arena and discourse, which is bled into, there's a choice of words, some common and everyday stuff, it's not so much the articulation of the point and the person, but it's the reaction to. And the reaction to that decries or demonizes or worse, to read Charles Blow's column this morning and shout and props to the Human Rights Commission. We welcomed him here not too long ago. His piece this morning is rather significant. I would commend that to you. He cites Galatians. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. He says, in essence, as Paul in that letter, that you will reap what you sow. But he does use the term in reference to this current administration in the White House as a fortress of fraudulence, and it's kind of like, oh my gosh, the reaction is one thing, but it's the reaction that just kind of decries or discounts any elements of truth and spins it a different way. What can we do? How can we come to the point of arriving at truth and fact? And so all that's in response to your question, which is a provocative. We could have a whole session more on that. Yeah. Might be others from. Yeah.
Elizabeth back there.
I'll be loud enough, but I don't need a mic.
She's so good. She's so good.
You can pick me up. My dear friend, many of you know, Michael Rosenbaum died this spring, and he would often, and I think of him, he would often talk about the difference between charity and justice. Charity is important and to all of us, but it's easier. Justice, seeking justice shall you pursue. It's much harder and more uncomfortable for most of us because it kind of gets to us. How do we seek justice? I'd like to hear what you both say about that.
Yeah. Yep. No, and in fact, you have it, Jewishly you have it right, because charity is caritas, and that's non-obligatory in Judaism.
Well, caritas is not a Hebrew word.
By the way, caritas is not a Hebrew word. But so the idea of teruma would be an optional in Torah and in the 5 books would be an offering of the heart. That's how the sanctuary got built. All those whose hearts so moved them. But you're talking about tzedakah. right? And you hear tzedek in there. Tzedek, tzedek tirdof. Justice, justice shall you pursue. It's not optional. Yet you have an obligation to fight for and to give and to make the world more just. There is such a thing as truth, right? It actually exists. It's beyond our personal bias and objective or subjective judgment. God creates the world with truth. It says. That's how God creates the world. The word truth is emet. It's the first letter of the Hebrew alphabet, the middle letter of the Hebrew alphabet, and the last. And so Rabbi Simcha Bunim says, only when we wake up, when we are in the middle of our day, and when we go to sleep, we put truth before us and keep it at all times at the forefront of our minds and hearts, will the world be healed. So it's about living that truth. Yeah. Not easy.
And I mean, I hope you're right.
Somebody could write this down.
Really, I was going to say, I hope you're right. This is good. This is what happens. You know, we're so excited to see you all because, I mean, and by the way, LMC-TV has the whole library of all of our shows, and you can do a binge on that sometime. I mean, talk to that table over there about that. But in terms of this, I mean, Elizabeth Sanger, educator from Houston, Texas, and the likes, and really just a wonderful witness. And
yes.
For you to offer that question is so you, Elizabeth.
Teacher.
But what strikes me, and I don't know the Simcha,
Simcha Bunim.
Simcha Bunim. I don't know that rabbi. I will know him now. But going forward, what strikes me is in the treatment and the addressing of justice, Micah 6:8, which there's a passage that is emblazoned on the Larchmont Temple. Okay, and many of you can recite it. What does the Lord require of you, but to love kindness and seek justice, and to walk humbly with your God. So, what strikes me, and this is kind of like Torah tradition and talking here, which we do. Okay, here's Torah, here's gospel. The dynamic, and Dr. Parker is a Hebrew scholar, he could wax on this too, and that is to say, but to seek justice, do we arrive at that? But it's the action of it. And so what would be justice? What would be justice for God's people? What would be justice for this earth now? Do we arrive at that? But the commitment to seek it, as opposed to, okay, here I go, blasting Attorney General because he's not doing his job and he didn't recuse himself, okay? He's not seeking justice, blank, blank. But what about seeking it? And, the dynamic of that, as opposed to just, and the phrase is interesting for Micah, as opposed to just loving kindness, but to seek justice with that. Micah did a powerful thing.
But we know the path.
Do we?
Yeah, we do. To walk humbly with God.
Well,
if you think, right? If you're not walking a path of humility, if you don't understand that you don't have all the answers, if you don't understand that you need other people in the world and in your life to help you get through it, then you're not walking with God. Right?
You've given me much to consider, Rabbi. Okay. But,
you're the one that did it.
But I want to get there, don't you, Elizabeth? I want to get there, don't you, Keith? I want to see that justice. I want to see that justice. So, but the point is not to languish and just say, go bail by charity. Oh, we've done well. Pat, pat, pat. There's a toxicity. I mean, even among do-good, well-intentioned folks, to say, oh, we've done it. Thanks be to us, But the pursuit. I mean, that's why the prophets are really profound. I really love, and this is a whole discourse, Jesus loved Jeremiah the prophet, even more than I do. But Jeremiah in the 10th, 11th, and 12th chapters in that wonderful book talks about the leaders of the day.
Yeah.
They cry, peace, peace, but there is no peace. There's no shame about them. And here's a line I love. They don't even know how to blush. They don't even know how to blush. There's no shame. There's no even like that faint, embarrassment. Do we see that? Where might we see that? Whatever. As opposed to the walking humbly.
Yeah. Beautiful. Yeah.
May I say something?
Wait, Iris Freed. God bless. When Rabbi Jeff and I grow up, we want to be like Iris.
Thank you. I've been here since 1958, and we moved here because the schools, I thought, were so right. when I was here and working, and then when I retired from my job, I wanted to do some volunteer work. And I got in touch with a wonderful woman in New Rochelle, Mary Lou McNally. She died, unfortunately. And we started a soup kitchen called Hope, Help Our People Eat. But the wonderful thing about the soup kitchen, we've been there for 36 years now, is the whole community, Larchmont, Mamaroneck, New Rochelle, where we have it, are all involved with raising money, with cooking for us, and with sending volunteers. And the volunteers, to me, is the best part, because they're young kids in high school, and they come down and see a new world. And we show them, and I always say, talk to people. And they do, and they get very involved. And we give them community credit, which helps them get into college. But it also helps them see a new world. My one favorite story about it is that a friend of mine called me, asked if she could bring her son, and she brought Matthew, and he was a volunteer, and he went to college, and then he came to his mother and said, Mom, from what I learned at Hope about giving, I'm going to medical school so I can give back.
Wow.
And he is now an anesthetist.
Wow.
And he says, I want to work with children. But what I mean about it is these kids learn that there's another world and how they can help.
Yeah, yeah.
And our community helps. They cook for us. They volunteer. And I think it's a wonderful thing to be part of this.
Yes.
All the community.
Yes, yes. Thank you, Aaron.
And thank you, Bill.
Yeah.
Thank you, Jeff, for the help they've given us. And they have.
Brother Keith.
Well, I'm not going to stand up because it's just too big. Peace to both of you. And thank you for blessing our community for the last 19 years with your commentary, a lot of humor, but it's also, as you say, the truth. Jeff, as I heard you, Rabbi Sir, I don't want to be too formal, War TV, but Jeff, any other time with Rabbi Serkman and Dr. Bill. But when you were talking, it reminded me of a passage in the scriptures from 2 Chronicles, verse chapter 7, verse 14, which says, if my people who are called by my name, seek, humble, seek the truth, looking for the Lord, and if all of those things would happen, he gave us the promise that he would heal he would forgive our sins and heal our land. Yeah. And just hearing you speak on that is one of my most favorite passages in the scripture. And this is what we would talk about today as a president who can't fly a flag at half-staff because of a personal vendetta, but then the rest of the nation is flying. It's just incredible. But what you gentlemen are doing, and Bill, I hope I can always be your block for you. He played quarterback, I played line, so we always tease about that. But the thing is that I'm hoping and blessed that it does continue. You said it end, maybe you could pick up somewhere else, but bless both of you. But thank you for just reminding me of that passage. Yeah.
Can I? All right. So I just want to do a little presentation. I can't resist. I'm not bending over. So 2 things I have to give Reverend Bill is just, they're not parting gifts. They're just gifts of love as we continue a relationship in a different way as he moves into a really cool place in Chelsea and leaves me behind. But it's okay. Because I asked and there's no room in the apartment for me.
Always.
So Reverend Bill is the epitome of, to me, an I vow relationship. Martin Buber's great existential work of the early 20th century.
On our reading list.
Right. So I want to give him this inscribed book, which is Martin Buber, Hasidic sayings, 10 rungs. And every page has a different little saying that that you'll say, oh, that's such a good one, I love that. And you'll say, what does that mean? But it's great. And of course it's inscribed, my friend, let me just see, to you, Reverend Bill, with deepest gratitude and abiding love. So that's for you.
Thank you very much.
I couldn't resist it because he knows I love him, and he knows I know he is He's going to work at the Desmond Tutu Peace Center, or Peace and Justice Center.
Justice, yeah.
And I know he's probably going to have a little corner at some desk on a wall. And I'm hoping that he is open enough in his heart to put this hat up. Now, this hat is a unique hat, right? So it is a hat that does say my team, but it says it in Yiddish. And so it's Red Sox. So I thought, what better, right? So I'm just saying.
Oh my God. Oh my God. You know, it's come down to this. Forced conversion.
Love you, brother.
Oh my God. So I'm glad Julie Parker is here, my beloved wife, partner, and scholar. It's kind of going to be curious to see who, upon seeing this, will say, "Why are you having that, Bill?"
Then you can tell them the story of your dear friend,
I will.
Rabbi Jeff.
I will.
Right, and how he forced you into.
And so I feel a little shorthanded because I couldn't find the counterpart for the Philadelphia Phillies. Well,
so I guess our parting is this. Don't let this be the last time you have breakfast at the diner with somebody who you don't really know that well, but they're your neighbor. Reach out to them. Say, hey, want to have coffee? Want to get together? I'd love to talk to you about that issue. Hey, do you know what's going on? Just have a cup of coffee, have a little breakfast. This time it's on us. Next time, you're fitting the bill. Right? But the price will be well worth it. We guarantee.
And that could be a movement, you know? I mean, we've kind of said, in jocular fashion, faith and eggs forever. But, table talk, steps forward, initiative to do that. Yes, just that.
Yes.
Somebody that you don't ordinarily know or talk to. What a movement, what a world
what an
that
awesome
would
thing.
be. Indeed.
Love you, brother.
Love you, man. Okay. Oh, thank you. Thank you.